Okay, so the last couple of days we've been doing a couple of psalms at a time because they've been shorter. Today we're doing half a psalm because it's longer. So let's listen to the first half of Psalm 68. May God arise, may his enemies be scattered, may his foes flee before him. May you blow them away like smoke. As wax melts before the fire, may the wicked perish before God. But may the righteous be glad and rejoice before God. May they be happy and joyful. Sing to God, sing in praise of his name. Extol him who rides on the clouds. Rejoice before him, his name is the Lord. A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families. He leads out the prisoners with singing, but the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. When you, God, went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, the earth shook. The heavens poured down rain before God, the one of Sinai, before God, the God of Israel. You gave abundant showers, O God. You refreshed your weary inheritance. Your people settled in it, and from your bounty, God, you provided for the poor. The Lord announces the word, and the women who prolong it are a mighty throng. Kings and armies flee in haste. The women at home divide the plunder. Even while you sleep among the sheepfolds, the wings of my dove are sheathed with silver, its feathers with shining gold. When the Almighty scattered the kings in the land, it was like snow fallen on Mount Zalman, Mount Bashan, majestic mountain, Mount Bashan, rugged mountain. Why gaze in envy, you rugged mountain, at the mountain where God chooses to reign, where the Lord himself will dwell forever? The chariots of God are tens of thousands and thousands of thousands. The Lord has come from Sinai into his sanctuary. When you ascended on high, you took many captives. You received gifts from people, even from the rebellious, that you, Lord God, might dwell there. It's a psalm of celebration. It's a psalm of God coming to his mountain, that dwelling place. Obviously, Jerusalem was the mountain on which the temple of the Lord was built. That's a symbolic. Many of the ancient people celebrated their gods on mountains, the high place, the sense of power and permanence and heaven come down to earth where the two touch, and that's very much the mood of the psalm here. God arising and coming in power and dwelling forever. But some of the themes, perhaps the way they sit together, are a little bit surprising. I don't know if you noticed that as we read it through. As it starts, may God arise, may his enemies be scattered, may his foes flee before him, may you blow them away like smoke as wax melts before the fire, may the wicked perish before God. You've got this sense of power and awe and vengeance and justice, perhaps fitting many of people's warped idea of this fierce God turning up the hellfire and just smashing people and obliterating them. And there is very much of that picture, isn't there, of this conquering God and the enemies just being scattered, just being blown away like smoke. It's all power, it's all vengeance. And yet, straight away, it goes on to say, but may the righteous be glad and rejoice before God. May they be happy and joyful. So even that sits a little bit uncomfortably, and then you think, well, no, actually, if the wicked are got rid of, if the ill of this world is sorted out, there's every reason to be joyful and happy. That is a good thing. And so the righteous ought to be glad, because they're the ones who are not God's enemies. Now, for all of us, we know that gives us a problem, because we are by nature not righteous. We are not the good who deserve to stay. We are the ones who deserve to be blown away. And so that points us to Jesus straight away, doesn't it? That actually, yes, we can be righteous in him, not because of what we've done, but because of what he's done for us. And so we can rejoice. That God is one day going to deal with sin, and there is going to be a new heavens and a new earth, wherein only righteousness dwells, and we can be there because of what Jesus has done for us. That's good news. But then, still in this context of power and vengeance and justice, look at verse 4. Sing to God, sing in praise of his name, extol him who rides on the clouds, rejoice before him, his name is Lord. Again, power, authority, rides on the clouds. But then where does it go? A father to the fatherless. a defender of widows is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families. He leads out the prisoners with singing, but the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. There's this grand scale, God the all-conquering hero, and yet there's this tender scale, father to the fatherless, a defender of widows. That's who God is in his holy dwelling. That's the heart of God. That tenderness, that kindness, that gentleness to those in need. The longing to gather the lonely into families, to rescue the captive. This is the heart of God. This is the heart of the all-conquering hero. It is the juxtaposing of those images, isn't it, of the mighty king riding out on his horse, clothed in his armour, vanquishing the enemy, and then at the end of the day returning home, and in his casuals, whatever they might be, joggers and t-shirt, lurching around the lounge floor with his 3 and 5-year-old riding on his back and jumping all over him, and that sense of tenderness and that kindness. That later on sitting with his arm around his wife, that family. And this is who our God is. Fascinating, isn't it? That's not what we would have expected to put together. The just God, the warrior God, with the gracious God, the caring God. And yet constantly that's how the Bible holds the two together. You have Jesus striding out against the unrighteous Pharisees who were self-righteous and oppressing the people, and Jesus tackles them. He turns over the tables in the temple, and at the same time he reaches out to touch the leper who no one else has touched, and brings in the prostitutes and the tax collectors and turns their lives around. This is who our God is at heart, and that's a great encouragement to us, because we are those who were captive to sin spiritually. We are those who are lonely and isolated because sin constantly breaks down, and God draws us to him and into his new family. But we have to hold on here and recognise that it goes on to talk about God's providing a land for his people in verse 9. 8 and 9, this land of their inheritance. Verse 9, you refreshed your weary inheritance. God is blessing the land, and your people settled in it, verse 10, and from your bounty, God, you provided again for the poor, those who didn't deserve it. There's this place of home then, of blessing and provision, and a place for the poor to gather, and very much for the Old Testament people of God, that was the land of Israel. And so under the Old Covenant, when they walked in God's ways, when they were righteous, they enjoyed those blessings, and we see God providing for the lonely and for the father and the widowless, fatherless and the widow, through the kindness of his people. Come to the New Covenant though, and we're not in a covenant arrangement like the Old Covenant where it's all about the land now and a Christian nation. We are a scattered people through the nations. The homeland we're longing for is not England under a Christian king. It's the new heavens and the new earth. And so actually at times now, even the followers of God can find themselves lonely, can find themselves losing family. There is a cost to following Jesus, which means for some people, as Jesus acknowledges, that the sword will come and divide family. It's very possible for Christians to be very lonely and isolated in this world, and so how does this psalm help us in any shape or form? Well, it reminds us that there is a land coming. Jesus promised that all who lose mother and sister and brother and land and life for his sake will be given so much more. Some of that now, sometimes in a new family, in a local church, but for everyone then, when Jesus returns, we will have those resurrection bodies. We will be part of that family. All sin will be gone. And that's a great encouragement and help to us. So bear in mind this wonderful picture, the combination of the mighty God, but also the caring God, the tender God, who is providing for his people a new family in a new land where there will be provision for all those who may feel unworthy and on their own and isolated and mistreated. There is hope in the gospel of that future, and it happens in measure already in the Christian church, but sadly Christian churches aren't always what they should be, but God in his kindness is promising a future home where all these things will be enjoyed to the full. And so we hope for that. We're going to listen to a song just about Jesus as our King and the hope that he brings for us.